the new earth has become available to us through the architecture of the incoming souls. For those of us that arrived in earlier generations onto the planet, we arrived into a denser planetary field.
I like to call ourselves the choosing ones, because it's up for everyone to choose to live this way.
I've experienced myself telepathy, and I actually have friends who have experienced teleportation. The sanctuaries that are now taking shape on the planet will become communities of our new earth that are energetically connected with one another.
How do you see our earth in, let's say, 30 years from now? How does it look like? Hi, and welcome to this new episode of the Lightleaders. Today we have a special episode with Leanne Edwards, who is an archaeologist of the soul, a newest architect, or some people call you the tea lady. Leanne's gifts include the capacity to traverse time, space, and dimension, supporting individuals to align with soul, reclaim sovereignty, and step into greater service. I've been connected to you by Celine D'Acosta, and she speaks very highly of you. And today is going to be a very multidimensional podcast. So we'll cover who we are, we cover what the new us looks like, and we've decided to make it quite a flow episode and see where that takes us. But it's going to be a really good one for a lot of people who are in my audience, who are light workers and people who are very multidimensional. So thank you so much, Leanne, for joining us. Quick question to start with. What are you grateful for today?
Life. You know, I have so much love and gratitude for the beauty and simplicity of my life on earth and for leading a soul-led life that we're all designed to lead, yet only those who choose actually do get to have that experience while they're here on this earth world.
I love this. Actually, in more traditional scriptures, you often have the chosen ones, the chosen people. And I like to call ourselves the choosing ones, because it's up for everyone to choose to live this way.
Yeah, we choose to be chosen. We choose ourselves, and we claim our place in the circle. We claim our place on the extraordinary stage of life, and we get to live it in each present moment. And it's a magical miracle, and it's mad, and it's so extraordinarily pleasurable and painful at times. Yet waking up to the aliveness of life, there's no going back.
Amazing. Can you share a little bit, like maybe a 2-3 minute version, which would be hard, of your background of how you got into a more spiritual way to live?
Long story short, I was born and raised in the far north of Aotearoa, New Zealand, Te Tai Tokerau, the tail of the whale. Raised as a bush baby from the south with the ocean, the farmland, the forest on my doorstep. And I had no idea what a gift that was. So the first lifetime within this lifetime, my first 20 years was as a child growing up in New Zealand in the South Pacific on the Ring of Fire. And at age 20, I went out into the world and spent the next chapter of my life, almost a decade, traveling. We mentioned earlier leading trips in Europe when I'd never been there before, but that went on to be an expedition leader for Encounter Overland and leading expeditions through Middle East, Africa, Asia, South America. And a quote comes to mind from a very dear brother in that community that said, life is not a dress rehearsal. And there's so much truth in that. It's not out there in the future. It's not way back in their past. It's happening here and now. And after my overlanding years, I set up camp in Africa and moved from tourism work into wildlife habitat and conservation, environmental education, community outreach. Based in Zambia at Lower Zambezi National Park through Conservation Lower Zambezi, and then up in Ethiopia in Omo National Park in the lowlands and the badlands of Kenya and Sudan. And fascinating is both of those countries had 70 odd different languages and 200 and something different dialects. One had been colonized by the British. One had never been colonized, and was the melting pot and the spice trade route. So very, very different experiences and so much learning in that period of my life where I was just immersed in nature, in wildlife areas with wild people, where, you got to realize what was important in life. And that no matter what backgrounds people came from, they were facing similar challenges in life. And that was my life and lifestyle. And I loved it deeply until, I don't know, age 40, when I got my cosmic kick out of Africa, my conservation work, a 20-year relationship, to forget everything I knew and everything I thought I was and show up for my soul's calling. And I didn't go at first, and I got extremely sick. In fact, everything Africa had to offer climbed into my body and through me. Everything crashed, and I had to rebuild myself from scratch, from ground zero, learn to walk in the world in a different way, and find out what I'm here for. And after making that step into not knowing, there was no going back. And life continues to be more magical, more multidimensional. And I feel very fortunate that I get to work with a lot of the light leaders that are here to make change on the planet today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Leanne. And, as light leaders, we're here to co-create that new us, right? I'd love to ask you, what does that new us look like?
Know that the new earth is here and now. And there's many different ways to explore this topic. The new earth has become available to us through the architecture of the incoming souls. For those of us that arrived in earlier generations onto the planet, we arrived into a denser planetary field. We arrived into parents who may or may not have done any personal work. So therefore, we've had a lot of excavation work to do to find out who we are, to uncover who we are. But there's nothing new to put into these systems. It's simply a matter of unpacking and removing that which is not us, so that we can come into coherence and alignment with what is. And through that work, then the next generation can come in with more connection, greater coherency, and frequency into conscious couples that have enabled us to reconnect to more of ourselves. So it's not something that we're doing alone. It's a collaboration with our planet that's deeply interconnected with our incoming souls through each generation. And in the most simple terms. Oh, I, on my own personal journey, was taken into the field of Neo-Tantra for 5-6 years. This was after my remembering through the red road paths of the four winds of the Andean and Amazon shamanic tradition. And when I got to the doors of the Neo-Tantra world, I looked up and down dimensionally and closed them and said, why am I going in there? And all I got is, put your head down, walk to the center. It's really important because in the Neo-Tantra fields, there's many colors of the rainbow, light and dark. And there's a lot of entanglement, there's a lot of trauma, and there's a lot of energy siphoning that goes off in that space. And I was taken in there, but I also had to understand, unless, particularly for the light leader community, prior to that encounter with the Neo-Tantra field, I was definitely part of the Love and Light Brigade. But that walk through the Neo-Tantra field took me down and in and deep. You've got to go in. The more we connect to our multidimensionality, we must come in and go down, because if we don't, we become a health hazard to ourselves, our clients, and our communities, and the planetary system. If we don't know ourselves through all levels and dimensions, including the darkness. So that was a great big journey. Also understanding what are the common issues in our lower centers that prevent our embodiment. If there's any shame, fear, guilt, or trauma in the lower energy centers, it will stop us grounding fully, anchoring fully, and being safe here in our dimensionality. So that was a wonderful gift. And then at the end of that, I was guided to work with women on all continents. And the reason I'm sharing this is because many of those women today are young mothers of the next generation of incoming galactic. And they have had to do their personal work, obviously, their ancestral work, and come into their own stargate in order to bring in this next wave of incoming galactics that then allow us, particularly those of older models, to reconnect to more of ourselves here on the planet. So that's a kind of a long story short of that side of the new earth. So I can pause there, and then I'll take you on another journey looking at from a different.
Thank you. And I love what you shared with those different generations. I think that makes me think of the work of Dolores Cannon, also with the things called the 3 waves of volunteers, right? With the trailblazers and then the different generations. And we can see that, it's always an interesting thought that at the same time there is that almost maybe linear way to see it, where we build the new earth and we're making it better, and we have more people, and we're transforming the world and making a world that's more in harmony with each other as human, without wars, also in harmony with a planet, also in harmony with animals, for example. And so that kind of linear building of a better world. And at the same time that the new earth is already here, as you said, and I'm sure you have a similar perception, where our reality is created through our consciousness, actually. And so through where we put our attention and the people we're surrounded with and all this, we actually can already live in a new earth, like we may do in Bali, for example.
When we're talking about new earth is here now, it's up to us to anchor ourselves or stabilize ourselves at the frequency of the new earth. A way to reflect that is through the main calendar. In October 2011, the 9th wave of the main calendar became active. Most of humanity in the momentum tunnel of consensual reality are still bobbing along somewhere in the 6th and 7th wave of the Mayan calendar through the nights and the days and the nights of that. But the 9th has been available to us, and people on the journey home to themselves and their own embodiment and reconnection will often go through stages where they will come out of that and touch into the 8th wave or touch into the 9th wave, so they get a glimpse of what is possible, but then get pulled back down into the 8th or 7th or 6th wave. And then they'll come up and get like a whale coming up for air almost, come up, get a glimpse of it and come down. So ideally what we're here to do is to unplug from the momentum tunnel of consensual reality, get off the treadmill, slow down, reconnect to ourselves and stabilize in the 9th wave of the Mayan calendar, in that frequency, in order to live New Earth now. And have enough awareness that if we get touched out of that, to look inside to see what's coming up for excavation, to remove it in order to stabilize for longer in the 9th wave of consciousness.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm curious, as I mentioned, Dolores Cannon, and I don't know, makes me think also of some teaching from the Law of One. Or do you have any specific mentors or maybe framework that you've been working with that you feel is shares in depth about like the fabric of reality, let's say?
I look at it, our embodiment and evolution is not rocket science. You know, evolution is happening. If we're not evolving, we're devolving. And evolution happens at the time it takes to align. So what I've worked out over my own personal journey and so many years supporting others is what I call the foundations of embodiment. And I've actually concentrated 8 shamanic journeys to work with the 8 keys of our personal embodiment and evolutionary journey in order to clear the stage so that we can then start connecting to the rest of ourselves really safely. You know, we're a bit like this multidimensional jigsaw puzzle, and we pick up pieces. But if we don't have a center core in which to bring those pieces back to hold them strong in, then they'll often drift away. So we actually need the foundation first. And that foundation of embodiment program looks at our masculine and feminine and inner marriage. Our masculine, who learned how to behave through what our father did, rather than what he may have said, and was he absent or not. Our feminine learned from our mother and what she did, was she absent or not. And our inner union was a reflection of theirs until it's resolved. So they're like the 3 first pieces. We have to look at our birth process from conception through in utero into this body on this earth. Did we make it through, or is there part of us still out there? We have to look at the integration of our animal body and our extraterrestrial nature of our soul. And it's not about being here or there. It's actually being about being here and there, because together that's where the strength and power comes from. So that's all of these pieces of the puzzle I've condensed into a foundation of embodiment journey that people can walk themselves through. And that used to be the beginning process that I walked everyone through on any of my journeys with me. The foundation embodiment are the 8 shamanic journeys which I'm guiding, and they're not shamanic journeys that are done as a journey as consciousness out of body. They're a journey that we take our body with us through, which is so important. You know, during my Red Road Path of Remembering, I used to show up every 3 to 6 months, either in Europe, UK, or US, and people who I bumped into would say, how are you making your changes and holding them? And if I hadn't asked that question, I would have reflected on it. I'm like, well, how do I manage to hold it where they tend to lose it? They have the, the moments of nirvana and connection, and then it dwindles away. And I thought there's a few points here, but most importantly, I'm working through all my bodies simultaneously. The physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the energetic body that informs that. The blueprint that informs our reality. And when we shift it on every body, then there's no going back. And I was also, I left Africa and my life behind, and I closed the door behind me. So there was no going back. I wasn't going back home to anyone or anything that knew me or held me in a certain way. I was continuously in the present moment and stepping forward into new environments and new people, which were actually very foreign to me because I'd lived my life outside of that momentum tunnel. I'd lived my life in nature. So I also I spent a lot of time listening to try and figure out how people organize reality who had been born and raised in the matrix.
Amazing. And I love that you bring that embodiment and in everyday life, because sometimes we do our spiritual work, let's say, disconnected from the world, right? Whether we're meditating in a mountain or we're doing ayahuasca in Peru or whatever. And the real work is often in relationship with family or partners, at work, with business, and all of this. So it's beautiful to have all these components. Actually.
Yeah, and it's vital in our world today. I also, for those that have been journeying with me for a while, I offer a mentorship, a mastery in multidimensionality, to teach, not to teach them the way I do things, but show them the maps I have in order for them to remember how their system operates with similar maps and organization of reality, so that I can do myself out of a job, so that they don't have to come to me when they start realizing they've got galactic interference or something major going on in their life that's beyond this dimension, and it's deeply influencing their reality in this dimension. So this is a question that's come up recently. It's like, we are all unique, just like everyone else, and our systems are unique, and our gifts are unique. And we're here to be, all of us, in our weird and wonderful expression. It's time to let our freak flag fly. Don't hide parts of ourselves that may not be acceptable in the places that we're coming from, because it's not where we're going to stay and it's not where we're going to. So when we are brave enough to be who we are in the world, our lighthouse is noted for that, it's seen for that, and it will attract those that will be supported by that. And this time on our planet, is like never before the most important time for everybody to claim their place in the circle, to choose to be chosen. We are sitting here a week into one of the most powerful passages in this entire year. We're on the edge of a full supermoon eclipse, September equinox, and eclipse passage. And this has been building for some time. It started around June solstice. We had in July 2 really big moons, big blue moon at either end of July, which gave it the feeling of the pressure cooker eclipse, although it wasn't an eclipse. Then we went through the Lionsgate passage, and many of people are going through a lot of stuff right now and are feeling this undertow, this pulling down, this drawing down. And it's literally the undertow of an enormous tsunami wave of awakening that's coming through this equinox and eclipse passage, and is likely to flood the planet in the next wave of awakening. So it's time to claim your lifeboat and be available to support the community that's going to need it. Because on the coattails of that, the powers that be have their own pantomimes planned. We're likely to see on the planet end of October, early November. And you want to have your pillar in place now.
Amazing. I love that you're
Yeah.
sharing that. And actually, I mean, that's a segue into a little bit of what I'm doing and sharing, which is, to me, it's really important that light workers, light leaders actually honor their gifts. And maybe sometimes I feel there's a little bit of maybe lack of ambition around the light workers to to change the world, to speak up our voice and follow our purpose and our mission. And so to the listener, I'm saying, if there's many ways you can express your soul's mission. And one of them, which is mine and might be yours, in the world of today of social media, of broadcasting our voices, having a podcast or a YouTube channel. And so if someone listening to this feels drawn to be a lighthouse in that way and shedding light on their own gifts, but also on the gifts of other amazing people, like I'm doing with this interview with you, Leanne, you can see in the description of the video, you can DM me on Instagram or Telegram, the word podcast. And I'm currently actually offering free sessions to the people who want to shine their light and have a podcast or a YouTube channel. So please reach out if that's your way, and whatever is your way, it's beautiful to express that and to do what you came here to do and really be a light leader in that way. Do you feel that sometimes light workers are shying away from their gifts and really expressing their true potential in the way they can shift, let's say, assist the rise in consciousness?
Some may be, but I don't often get to meet those ones because a lot of my work now, it's not for people on the beginning of the soul's journey. It's people who are here to pick up the last pieces of their soul puzzle, anchor them in, and start connecting to their galactic selves. And so the people who come knocking at my door are usually the ones that are committed, dedicated, invested in their 100%, both feet and doors closed behind them, and actually want support to excavate their deep unconscious in any way or form that may be holding them back in the last little pieces for them to have complete freedom of presence, voice, and love in the world. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think again, it's like your own reality, and like, let's say, your own consciousness and environment creates your reality, right? So I guess with the work you're doing, you're only connecting with the light leaders and the people who step up. So that's beautiful. Actually, going along these lines, so again, that in that view, we each create our world, and there's not one version of us, right? There's like an infinity of versions of us, and everyone has their own version of us. And so I know from that perspective, let's say 30 years from now, there won't be one us. There will be some people that will choose a timeline that's, let's say, very dystopian, maybe. And some people like us, I believe, that will choose a timeline that's much more like heaven-like. So if we choose a beautiful timeline as light leaders who take care of our own consciousness and the outside reflection of it, how do you see our Earth in, let's say, 30 years from now? How does it look like?
Shambhala. But not in effect going back to Shambhala, but literally, the sanctuaries that are now taking shape on the planet will become communities of our new Earth that are energetically connected with one another, that we can actually teleport between. And it's where we have both inner Earth and galactic gateways reopened again, stable and manned and operational. And it's really exciting because, again, speaking about these incoming galactic, just lost how much, because they're interconnected with it. So our soul service is also, you know, it was a great gift. I thought it'd take me 3 years to clean up my physical and energetic body for my pathway to open, but I was so focused it happened in about 18 months. I came back online, soul anchored, reconnected to the earth and the grid, and my life's been very guided ever since, a soul-led life. So I've just been kind of doing my best to follow the instructions and show up at the right place at the right time. And it's been very magical because I don't lead a separate life. I don't like go home to something else. I've been living in an integrated New Earth way for a long time. And just recently, coming to Bali, Indonesia, and we spoke a little bit about this before we came online. I got my call, although I've been a temporary migrant through Indonesia for 14 years, I got my call to get a key test in the middle of COVID. The doors opened, a group of us flew in, and the doors closed again behind us. And I did my quarantine in Jakarta, and last minute I got shifted from a city hotel to a hotel on the outskirts. And I remember living on the 11th floor for 5 days and nights, next to a huge energy vortex, and was shown how the new earth would unfold here through the Indonesian archipelago. And for everything, I'm just like, okay, unconditional love and non-attachment. If it's meant to, it will, and just show up and keep answering whoever knocks at the door. And, you know, we're a few years down the track now. And when I returned now in June, I went into retreat for my own self-love and care for June solstice, and then up to North Bali and made my way west where I hadn't been before. And very dear friends who have journeyed with me in both Egypt and Peru had inherited land in the north point of Bali, and they live down the south in Uluwatu. And I was unable to meet with them on that land prior to my departure, but on the return we met on this land, because the land was showing us that will be one of the sanctuaries for this next wave of incoming galactic, their families on this earth, and that's likely to be the first one of 12 that will be situated on different points on the planet. Now, they can only land when those that are here to be the kaitiaki or guardian or custodian of the land show up and say yes, claim their place, do their work, recalibrate it, and that's what allows heaven on earth. It allows the architecture of what wants to land there to actually land in manifest physical reality here. So this is what we have unfolding on the planet right now, which is very, very exciting.
Amazing. Thank you, Leanne. So I'd love to ask you on this, like, in terms of, so you talked about those communities that are pioneering that new earth, right? So are you involved personally in helping building those communities?
My system is more of an architect. So it's like my system works with the planetary field in that I can work with different places on the planet through my body. And we can use my body as a resonance board to fine-tune the individuals to their soul work, their mission, their service, and bring their groups together that are here to do the actual construction work. And that's the way how I operate. So I'm not the one that's on the ground building that, but I'm the one that can be called upon to help get the center pillar in place, the surrounding pillars, so that they will have the gifts and expertise they need to actually manifest. And one of the greatest gifts to have is the ability to listen.
Mm. In my head, that's more the role than of a channel or maybe an oracle.
Yeah, I guess I've done my duty in Delphi a couple times. And on that note, I still live with these here. So
Amazing. Yeah. Also,
yeah.
noted as you talked about teleportation, for example, in our, let's say, usual world, we have the world of technology like we're doing that podcast now with I'm on my smartphone, on your laptop, using the internet grid, and that's what we associate technology with, right? Instead of telepathy, we're using those technology, and we have great technology to travel, like planes. But obviously, it's almost there's two paradigms of technology. One is the one we know in our current material world, and the other one seems like magic, and it's more the telepathy, the teleportation. But to me, it's something that makes sense as we elevate our consciousness. So how do you see this coming to our Earth, things like telepathy and teleportation?
They're already here. And yeah, I've experienced myself telepathy, and I actually have friends who have experienced teleportation. And I think before we go into that, it's really important to know that we're here with an analog brain, and we're operating a lot of it digitally. And it's really important that we don't become dependent on our digital devices, because they also disconnect us from our physicality. So we're not going to achieve the teleportation and telepathy if we're dependent upon the digital devices, if we're not doing our work with our physical system and upgrading this to meet the potential that's available to us now. And this is why we've got the incoming galactics who are going to land with their gifts and remember who they are and not forget, will support us to reconnect.
Mm.
And on that note, I can remember, interesting because you're from France, that I think it was on my first adventure into the south of France on the Mary Magdalene Trail years ago. And we're in Rennes-les-Bains, and stumbled across the plaza into a crystal shop that you never would have thought existed. And the guy inside says, "Oh, you've got to meet so-and-so." And he gets on the phone and says, "Oh, there's some women here that you should meet. And they're not like normal tourists. You really should meet them." So this guy actually, he said, "I'll tell them in the morning. If I feel like it, I might come." But he did. He came and met us, of course, soul family. And he took us on this most extraordinary adventure in the south of France, not to the tourist Isis seat, but to the original Isis seat, which is an old temple site down there. But on our way down to a valley known as the Valley of Deuce, which was the Valley of God, which is the old Essene community down there, he just stopped. He didn't say anything, but we got out on the rocks. And I was kind of just skipping from one rock boulder to another. And I was talking while I did it, and I stopped and got into an echo chamber and looked down, and it was like a big petroglyph that I was standing on. And that was actually one of the original teleportation chambers on the planet that we were using for teleportation. So that's where something that I was aware of, I had knowledge of, became a visceral embodied experience. Yes, these exist, and yes, potentially we will reconnect them and reignite them on this earth walk in this lifetime and timeline.
Amazing. I love that. And yeah, it's interesting. I mean, as you said, it's already there. And again, it's where we direct our experience, right? So I'm sure if people come more in contact with people like you and other people who play with the things, then it becomes more and more a reality. And I know it's going to come for me too. At the same time, it's like having that balance where I understand in theory, let's say, that using a phone may injure or harm my abilities to use telepathy, for example, because then I'm using that crutch, kind of, right? But at the same time, in my everyday experience, I haven't managed, for example, at least from what I know, I know there's some form of telepathy where I communicate with people, but not in a way that's so clear that it's like, okay, we meet at 2 p.m. at Alchemy, for example. And my experience has been that phones, for example, have been very useful for that. So I think then for me to transition my reality to that's like a great theory, but doesn't work in my day-to-day life to that's actually how I live, it's great for me to be in an environment where I, of course, it starts with faith and I believe in it, but also where I see a feedback where it actually works for me and for people around me and where I can trust that also to then give it even more faith. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I have a lot of love, honor, and respect for these devices. This is the best secretary I've ever had because I can keep it on silent
Mm.
and she supports me when I need her to. And it's wonderful. And it's really important on our embodiment and evolutionary journey. We have discipline and a practice. And I always recommend digital detox from 9 p.m. till 9 a.m., at least 12 hours. You might shift those hours slightly, but a complete digital detox. No devices, everything's off, Wi-Fi's off, and give the system an opportunity to completely sync itself with the circadian rhythms of the planetary body, because that's what we need to do. We have to be able to operate on Chronos, linear time, and Kairos, our cyclic circadian time of our planetary bodies and our sun, our moon, and the stars. And to sync ourselves with the source of creation, that is vital. So having a daily practice that does cleanse, clear, purify, align, connect us, ground us, embody us, and having an evening practice that does the same before we put our bodies in the dream machine and go elsewhere at the night is a really vital part of the journey.
Which is, in a way, also a form of teleportation, because we do travel a lot. Thank you so much, Leanne. Thank you so much. Talking about practice, what's your go-to practice?
I have a routine. I may as well just share it with you. I wake up in the morning at dawn. Wherever I am on the planet, that has been most of my life. And that's a gift, because the first rays of the sun, obviously a vital nourishment for our light body, they also help us sync with the circadian rhythms of the planetary body. And when I wake up, the body needs hydration. So a liter of really high quality, high vibe earthly waters, or Kangen water if you can't get earthly waters. And say good morning, say hello to the person whose teeth you're scrubbing and let them know that you love them. And then my combination, evacuating the bowels, that's a good one to talk about. People don't talk about it enough, Our time to evacuate the bowels are between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. And if you're not doing that, then you're probably dehydrated and your body's probably out of sync. And then I do a combination of morning work, writing, breath work, and then a practice of hanging, rolling, qigong, yoga or dance. And all of that happens before I put any devices on, so that I can then fully back into my own body, calibrate, tune in what needs to come through in the day. I'm not a person that sits still in cross-legged position to meditate. My meditation has always been an integrated part of my whole system, that I don't have to go to stillness to go out of my body to connect. Rather, it's online real time. And that, I believe, is the way our systems are meant to operate. So that's my morning practice. But if I'm doing a big, deep journey and somebody's inviting me into their universe to help them unpack it and come into coherence and then step out again, I will do another Qigong practice to clear myself at the end of that. And I'll do a similar one again in the evening. And one of the best Qigong practices I've found for that are the 8 brocades.
Okay, thank you. Maybe you can send me a link and we can put that in the description if you have.
Yeah. But that morning practice is vital, really.
Yeah. I'd love to ask you also, because through my own life and the interviews I've done here, I've built a bit of a following in the, let's call it the raw vegan, high fruit nutrition niche. And for me, I feel that also having a more living food diet is something that is going to help me connect more with my higher self and the higher those higher frequencies. Is that something you also integrate as an important part of the process?
Diet, exercise, nutrition is vital for the journey. with awareness, following the wisdom of the body consciousness. Our bodies have their own guardians of the body consciousness that will actually guide us exactly what the body needs when it needs it in regards to food, rest, supplement, exercise, anything. And I recommend that as the go-to place to follow what your body needs at any time. And I've explored many different healing modalities, therapies, from Pachacama Ayurveda to raw food. And now I follow the wisdom of my body, and I've found benefit at different times to different things. And my body's very sensitive and also changes her requirements depending upon what continent I am on and what climate I am on. So raw food can be really supportive in Bali, Indonesia. However, my body will still prefer cooked food in the evening. Simple but light soup, cooked food in the evening. But raw, morning and lunch. Yeah. So again, not to get attached to anything, but be open to explore what the body needs at the time through the wisdom of the body consciousness.
Thank you. I love that. And I feel that's the evolution. I think sometimes having like maybe some more rigid systems might make things easier for a transition, be it, I don't know, vegan or whatever. So you have a simple framework to stick to, but then you develop that sensitivity and truly listening to the body, which I think is the next evolution. This is really good. There can be, I feel sometimes, a certain level of refinement that you need to have, because I also believe sometimes it can be microbes or parasites that ask for certain food, and really, or maybe just emotional challenges that you want to numb. So there might be many things that you feel you want this, but it's not truly your body that wants it. It's something else that you mistake as my body wants it. So it can be sometimes just a very fine discernment to develop.
Yeah, and that, and part of this earth walk is mastering discernment in this dimension and others. If we've got physical parasites, we probably want to have a look at our energetic parasites as well. And that discernment comes from a visceral embodiment that knows truth beyond mind. And that comes with alignment of the bodies, physical, mental, emotional, with soul. Because when that's aligned and we no longer lie to ourselves, we're very clear with our own truth, and we're very clear to read what's true external from us. Because when we're in alignment and coherence and truth, whatever is not truth is felt, and whatever is truth is felt as ecstasy or Kyopa, as the Mayan described.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leanne. And also, as we're touching upon the end of that conversation, well, I'll put links in the description for people who want to follow more your work. And I'd love to give you the mic again for like some last shares that you'd like to share with our listeners today and viewers.
To know that the absolute root of our foundation and embodiment is love. And self-love to the level that we will no longer compromise our truth. And
yeah, I love that. And I think we're in a world where we have many ways that we maybe got brought up as a people pleaser, or we want to fit in. And I think it's a very beautiful reminder. In like right now, I'm traveling in Germany, and it's easier in Bali, but in Germany, keeping those self-love practices, eating the way I need to eat, it requires a high level of commitment, let's say, and standing in our light and in our truth, and saying no and having boundaries sometimes also. That's also the way of the heart and of love. It's not always to just say yes to everything, right?
Yeah. It's vital, to be in love and truth with ourselves and one another. And this is like the foundation of relationship is love, honor, respect, truth, transparency, integrity, kindness, empathy, compassion, and clear and conscious communication. And that's our relationship with ourselves, each other, our communities, and our environment. And when we come into relationship within, then it starts to mirror around us.
Oh, thank you so much, Leanne. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you to all the viewers who watched this episode too. If you have any comments, if you want to share your vision of what the new Earth is or your favorite practices to feel connected to your multidimensional self, you can post this in the comment. And if you enjoy, you can like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, Leanne. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And maybe I'll see you soon when I fly back to Bali.
Thank you, Alex, for this opportunity to meet with you in your community and connect with you from Bali while you're out there. I just feel to share the beauty of Bali with your community before we go, because the sun's setting on my view out there.
The rice feels amazing. Thank you.